This painting will be our inspiration for today. It is not mine. It is a painting that was found on Pinterest and uploaded by Jordan Osborne. We will be doing a little bit smaller version of this because our canvas is pretty small today, but this is where our idea is stemming from. We're going to start with our background, and you should have a similar color palette next to you that was found in the image that I just showed you. And make sure to have some water and some paper towel. When we add our colors, it is extremely important to make sure your brush is very clean and very dry every time you grab a new color, just so that we don't have mixing that we do not want. I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way upward, and I'm going to start with the yellow and then go to the orange and the magenta and then finally the blue. The yellow is probably going to be the biggest portion of my background because I'm going to overlap it later with grass. It's extremely important that we don't put the paint on very heavy or it won't dry nicely. So take your brush and you're making upward brush strokes, not quite halfway. So if we imagine this folded in half, this would be about halfway. We're going to overlap colors too, so it's so important that you go a little bit farther than you need to because you're going to end up covering a little bit of that color by overlapping each color. And once again, remember to rinse and dry your brush every single time you grab a new color. My brush is now clean and dry, so I'm ready to grab my orange. When you start overlapping colors, same thing as before, you don't want to go too heavy on the paint, but you also kind of want to overlap them so they start to blend. You're not using that much pressure, so kind of light wispy marks, and you're going up and down so they sort of blend. And hopefully you worked quick enough that this paint is still wet. And we're still going to add 2 more colors, so don't go up too extremely high. So you're overlapping probably about here with the pink, and then you're going to finish the rest of your painting with blue. And when our background is dry, we'll be able to start adding additional details. So this is basically part 2 of this painting project. My background is 100% dry and I'm ready to start adding the grass and the flowers now. We're going to start by adding the shadow of the grass. So I'm not going to start entirely at the bottom because I'm going to end up putting blue paint down here. But with black paint, I'm going to make kind of quick flips of black to create the shadow for the grass. And if your paint's not really flowing very well, so if it's kind of like sticky-ish, you can dunk your brush in your water, that's what I just did, and then give it a stir so it kind of makes it a little bit more flowy, I guess you could say, when you're adding it to your canvas, because sometimes it tends to kind of get sticky. So if you need to practice this kind of grass appearance, you can either do it on your placemat or you could do it on a practice sheet of paper to get the idea. So quick little flips, you want them to get a little bit skinnier, so you're basically pushing down and then lifting up essentially. So practice that a little bit if you need to, or just go right to your canvas and you're going to add the black going all the way across. When you're done with that step, you're going to clean and dry your brush really well, and you're going to add some blue on top of that. Hopefully you didn't add the black really thick because we want it to kind of dry relatively quickly or start to dry. So if you notice, it's only shiny in some areas. So I'm going to grab just plain dark blue, and like I said before, if you need to add some water to your brush and your paint to get it to work a little bit better. So we're just going to overlap, kind of sneak some blue in there, and you're going to go down a little bit farther. You will notice it'll start to get a green appearance because you're going over top of that yellow, and that is 100% fine. So kind of nearing the bottom. Our last layer will be a mixture of white and blue together. So go ahead and add your blue all the way across. And for your kind of last layer of grass, you're going to create sort of a medium blue. You don't want it to be very, very light. You just want to add a little bit of blue, or a little bit of white to your blue, I'm sorry. And then you're going to use that in your last layer here. You don't want it to be too incredibly light, because it'll be a really drastic change. And you're using this blue on the very bottom here, and we're basically covering up this last little bit. So you're going to really fill it in there. Same quick, wispy movements, and different sizes is good too. So if you do a really tall one here and there, and little stubby ones here and there, that makes it look much better when our layering is added. And then I like to grab just my plain blue and sort of go back and add just little flecks of dark here and there. And that is it for the grass. Next we'll add a stem for our dandelion. So you want to get some green on your brush. Make sure if you need to, you add water to it if it doesn't seem like it's going to flow very good. And you're going to do the same kind of flicking motion. So I would say we probably have enough room for 2, maybe 3 flowers. I think I'm just going to go and do 2 for mine. So I'm going to do a stem that kind of comes to here, and I'm going to do a stem right here. So it's just like the blades of grass, but they are just a little bit curved. If you wanted to, you could kind of sneak one in on an edge, kind of like this. So your flower is going to be like right here, and there's going to be some overlapping. So you have to think about the placement of your stems before you get them on there. Otherwise, you'll run into problems if they're like really, really close together. So anyhow, spread out some stems. No more than 3 is my suggestion to you. You can even add little flicks of some green down here if you choose. And then if you want to add some leaves, little tiny leaves on your stems here, just like that. Okay, the fun part, adding the flowers. So you need either a teepee roll or a paper towel roll, and you're going to make some snips in it. So the bigger we make the snips, the bigger the flower, the wider the flower will be. So think about how large you want them to be. So you could start smaller, and you could always use the other end to try a different size if you want. So add some little snips all the way around and try and get them as even as possible. So you don't want to cut up some really high and some really, really low. So try and get them pretty equal and snip all the way around. When it's cut, you're going to take and kind of press those pieces down to kind of create that flower shape. Like that, flatten it out. And I did one side that was a little bit shorter so you could see the difference in the size. So this is the little bit smaller flower, and then this one's a little bit bigger, just to give you an idea of what they can be like. So we're going to take some white paint on a flat surface, and you're going to kind of tap it around in there, because you want to get all of that covered in paint. So make sure that you tap all the way around until you have a decent amount on there. And I would definitely try practicing this on a placemat before you put it on your actual canvas. So once you have paint on all your little petal things here, just maybe try and tap up here, so then you can get a feel for it too, so you can see what it's going to be like. And I kind of like to turn it and tap it, keeping a circular spot in the middle there, and just kind of turn until I get a shape that I like. And once I get the hang of it, then I can start adding it to my canvas. So when you do go to add it to your canvas, you're going to find the top of your stem, and you're going to try and get the middle of your flower be kind of centered on top of that space. So I'm going to go like this and just gently tap and turn it as I go to get the flower on there. Don't press too hard, because then you end up with some globs. Just kind of pat it on there until you get a nice flower shape. Then grab a brush and add some little flicks of white that go from your stem up to the edge. They don't have to be heavy, just little flicks to make it appear that they're attached on all of them. And then you can use a Q-tip, or a little cotton swab to add in any areas if it's kind of bare, and then kind of, if you want, you could add some little, like the pieces kind of floated away around the edge too. So fill it in just a little bit with the white, and then later go add a little bit of color.